what's in me. I won't see you end as ashes. You're all diamonds.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's Erik here, and welcome to another movie review. This is gonna be the second review that I record in a row. I just recorded the Coco review, so please make sure you go and watch that before you watch this one. Before I actually talk about the movie in of itself, I want to at least tell people that I have a Discord channel that I think you guys should probably go check it out. The link will be in the top of the description because there I will be giving people the idea of what I'm going to be doing for both my channel. I'm going to be telling people when I'm going to start streaming, when videos will go out, stuff like that. So before you guys watch it, please go make sure that you join the Discord. The link will be in the bottom, just in the top of the description. And with that, let's just get right into the review. So today's movie that I'm going to be reviewing is Justice League, which is the fifth film in the DC Extended Universe. Although I call it the DC Cinematic Universe because I don't know, habit I guess. It was a film directed by Zack Snyder and Josh Whedon. The movie in of itself taking place after Batman vs Superman. It's about the tutelar superhero team titled Justice League, consisting of Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg, forming together to save the planet from a threat known as Steppenwolf and his army of parademons. This film was coming off on the heels of the copious amounts of negative reception that the previous films have at least brought upon the entire series in of itself, with the exception of Wonder Woman, which has been so far considered by many to be the greatest film of all time. So how can I explain to you what my thoughts are completely on Justice League are? Give me 3, 2, 1. Justice League in of itself was a pleasant surprise, in all honesty, since this is the follow-up to Batman vs Superman, a film that I personally dislike, extremely dislike. I had little to no hope that this film was going to be anywhere to amazing to horrible. Like, I had absolutely no expectations for this film whatsoever. The only reason I even went to go see this film in theaters was primarily because Wonder Woman was such a great film that I decided to at least give the DC universe one more chance at giving me a solid film that actually didn't feel awful. The part of the DC universe I'll explain later. Alright, but getting on to the point of the film. The film was an overall enjoyable film. It was humorous. The cast had chemistry, particularly Aquaman with pretty much everybody. I felt Aquaman, Cyborg, and Flash were very welcome additions to the franchise, each of them bringing their own little dynamics, with Aquaman being like the typical bro man, Cyborg being the intellectual person who believes in all the flaws that he has and that he believes himself as to be a weapon, and Flash is being the socially awkward teen who's just trying to prove to the world that what his father did was not entirely accurate. So, getting on to the pros of the film. As I said before, the dynamic and chemistry that the cast had with one another felt accessible. In fact, I felt this cast had more chemistry with each other than I did with the Avengers when that movie first came out. I felt like a lot of the times this film had its ups and downs. Like, at least every actor and actors had their moment. As I said before, Batman felt different from his performance in Batman vs Superman, which in my opinion felt nice. Wonder Woman was as obvious as it's always gonna get. She was the highlight of the film. Just being there brought a sense of incitement to the film. And as I stated before, each of the three new cast members that came in felt natural. They actually brought in their own parts of the table. And even Superman, which, since no surprise there, he's in the film, he actually felt actually like Superman. Like, he wasn't this mature, but yet also super depressing character that Zack Snyder has been trying to portray him as in the previous films. At least that's how I seen him. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't mind how he was portrayed in other films. I just didn't like it how he was portrayed. Like, as the main icon of hope and justice and love, he should have been portrayed in a better sense. That he should have at least tried to be more positive during those films. And in this film, it kind of like retconned all of that, and it gave him back, and it gave them, and it gave us back the Superman that we kind of love, albeit also still mature. Getting on with some of the other stuff, the action sequences in the film I actually really enjoyed. I felt like a lot of the fights that Justice League had with the army that Steppenwolf had was exciting, to the point where I felt like it was more interesting to see these fight sequences than it was to see in like some of the other films from Marvel, such as the Avengers movies. However, I felt that the film had a very weak villain placed with Steppenwolf, because Steppenwolf, when he appeared in the film, he was given a very rushed backstory. Like, he was given, like, you basically had to at least know what he was in the comics to even have an idea what he was in the film. Like, they tried their best to explain who he was, but in all honesty, he was a very weak character that had a superiority complex, and in all honesty, he was just a bad villain in and of himself. He's like one of those villains that you would just forget about sometime in the future. In fact, the last time I've seen a villain that bad in a superhero film was the villain from Ant-Man. Because, my god, I hated that villain so much. He was like the worst villain I've seen in Marvel. Getting back into the other things. The story was okay, and the cast was okay, as I said before. But the problem I felt that was that this film should have been released many years from now. I felt like what they could have done better with Justice League was have each of the standalone films properly introduce each of the characters. Like, have Flash's movie come next, then come Aquaman's, and come Cyborg's. Like, have their films appear before the Justice League movie, so that way you can at least have these characters already introduced, and you could have had the entire film go a different way. Like, I felt like the film, like I said, with what he did in the film, it was alright, but it should have been properly introduced. Because, like, it's basically, this is the same thing I had with Batman vs Superman, where, like, a lot of the times the film expects you to, like, to know these characters, like, know a lot of the story beforehand. Like, they expect you to want to care for these people, in a sense. It's like, oh, Wonder Woman, oh, Superman, and like all that. Like even the characters that were already introduced before didn't really feel well in Batman vs Superman. Justice League, they had their moments. They actually had their moments to shine and all that. But in all honesty, this film was a very enjoyable superhero film, and it's also a really good superhero team movie. But in all honesty, I felt like DC and Warner Brothers, hell, even Zack Snyder, could have done a better job with the film itself. Like, I felt like they could have done so many things with the franchise, to the point where they could have completely changed the schedule of a lot of their movies if it meant taking their time to introduce the characters before just putting them all together into a superhero team and then having them fight this villain who has absolutely no relevance whatsoever to the franchise, and it's kind of like shoehorned in there just because they needed a villain. Now this is kind of like one of the things I've had issues with the DC Cinematic Universe, or DC Extended Universe, my apologies. I honestly feel like because this is a franchise that is trying to compete directly with Disney and Marvel and like the Avengers, they're trying to rush a lot of the storylines to the point where it just becomes this muddled and messy film that tries to basically bank on a similar but also kind of different formula that Marvel has already established. Because what they're trying to go through here is make a dark, gritty franchise with these mature characters and these stories that honestly could work really well. Because, in my honest opinion, DC's Justice League is far more mature than Marvel's The Avengers. Like, these characters are very mature with how they are in the comics. And honestly, Batman is probably one of the more mature characters out there because of his backstory and his storyline. Like, anything can be done with these franchises. Anything can be done with these superheroes in and of themselves in a way where, like, you could at least be happy to see them in the film and not just be, like, begrudgingly going to the theaters just because you want to at least see how it feels. Because that's exactly what ended up happening with the Batman vs. Superman movie and Suicide Squad. Because Batman vs. Superman was this anticipated titanic fight between Batman and Superman, and while it did make a lot of money, it was considered a financial disappointment, and a lot of the critics and audience did not like what they got a good amount of the times. There are always going to be those people who defend DC and all that. Then there's also Suicide Squad, which I felt was more enjoyable to watch than Batman vs. Superman. But in all honesty, that film put too much focus on some of the other characters over some of the characters in the Suicide Squad team than others, for the sole purpose of, oh hey, we got these big budget stars in our films, we should put more focus into them than anybody else. I was like, no. The point of the movies is you're supposed to put an equal amount of focus into each character. Make sure that they develop faster. Or not faster, at least they make sure they're at least developed. And in all honesty, I think what they did get right was definitely the Wonder Woman movie, because I felt like that film not only introduced the origins of Wonder Woman, but it also gave Gal Gadot a chance to shine and just like bring this joyous, charismatic person that she usually is in a lot of her films, and just show people that DC can make good movies if you just let them do it the right way. And honestly, I could be talking so much more about this, but I don't want to like make this into like a 30-minute video. But to kind of sum it up, Justice League was a good film. It was a good superhero film. I enjoyed it. The pros of the film were its action sequences, its CGI, and its cast and acting. The story was kind of meh, and the cons of the film have been the really weak and kind of underdeveloped, no, not, it's severely underdeveloped villain. It's shoehorning a lot of the story elements that could have been properly introduced through other films. Same with the superheroes, where a lot of the origins are kind of just like bundled up into this one film that could have just easily been avoided if they had just decided to just wait it out before they started releasing their superhero team films. All in all, if I had to give this a rating, this film deserves at least an 8 out of 10. I at least am a little bit more hopeful for what DC has for its franchise, but at the same time, I'm not gonna give it like too much credit because they're making a lot of decisions that I feel like they could have easily have changed beforehand. And the DC franchise needs to step up its game and try to not be competing with Marvel in a way, and instead try to just at least release the films and make the films because people want to see DC superheroes, not because they want to cash in on the superhero genre being popular and at the same time competing with Marvel for that sole purpose. Just make these films as good as they should be. Alright, I'm going to end it off now. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you check out the Coco review, and make sure you also check out my Metal Gear Solid 5 review. The next review will be within the next few days as well. It'll definitely be a video game review. It's either going to be Overwatch or Last of Us, depending on which one I finish first. But just bear with me on that. Alright, I'm going to end it off. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you all later. Take care.